Welcome to the PowettPlay Podcast, where international cricketer Kieran, Powell and marketing genius Shannon join forces, bringing you captivating conversations with the biggest players in cricket and business. Join us as we dive into the lives of current stars in the cricketing world, the legends before them, and those extraordinary icons whose performances changed the game in both cricket and business. Exploring journeys both on and off the pitch, the boardroom, and everything in between. Get ready for an exhilarating blend of cricket, life, and business insights, with two insatiably passionate, infuriatingly no-holds-barred hosts, who, unfortunately for the rest of us, live and breathe this stuff for a living.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 50 of the PowettPlay Podcast. I'm your host, Shannon, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Kieran Powell. How are you, Kai?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. You seem to be back home in London. There's something, a bit of bad news.
Yeah, obviously, it's unfortunate that I got injured in that match against Jamaica. Obviously, I didn't bat in that match, and yesterday's match against the Windward Islands, I was on the flight when they were playing, heading back home. So yeah, unfortunately, tore my hamstring. I was chasing a ball in the second over, I think, of the innings. Yeah, and it was like I knew something bad happened because I was running on it. I felt something pop. I was like, oh, I've never had that feeling before. That's not right.
No.
And so sort of just hobbled around the boundary, got into the dressing room. Fortunately, Dr. Mansing was at that game he actually came to Trinidad to see his son play because Abijay was playing with the CCC as well. He was able to come in and assess, and straight away he felt as though it was either a strain or a tear. But the ultrasounds the next day confirmed it was a tear, and sort of just precautionary measures, more so than anything, sort of ruled me out of the rest of the tournament. So I mean, it was very unfortunate because I felt as though like I'd just taken stride. I just started to bat really well, obviously coming off of that century against Barbados. I think that I would have really enjoyed batting against Jamaica and the Windward Islands because the pitches have really started to turn around and the ball is really coming onto the bat really well. Even with so much rain around, the ball was still coming onto the bat really well. So the groundsmen have done a tremendous job towards the back end of the tournament. So I think that I've probably missed out on the better side of batting, but everything in life happens for a reason.
Yeah, you can't do much about something like that. And as you mentioned, like the knock against the West Indies Academy, I thought, wow, you looked to go big there. There were definitely signs that you were finding your best form. And then obviously the innings against Barbados was just superb. It's quite funny really because the stream wasn't working. So like I was like sat, it was I think it was about 10:15, 10:30. And I was like sat there and I was just watching the laptop and it was like updating. And Nicole, my wife, was like, "You're just staring at the screen." He's like, "Is everything okay?" I was like, "Yeah, don't move." Like, it was just brilliant. It's a shame I couldn't, weren't watching it, but I was like just staring at this scorecard, just updating it. 91, and it gets to, I think, did you hit a 6 to get to 98? Was it?
To get to 96.
96 and then 2 twos. Yeah. So. No, it was good. Thankfully, I managed to watch the highlights and stuff, but it was brilliant. Has that been the tactic though, to go out early and go hard? Has that been something that was discussed?
Honestly, I don't even think that I was going hard, to be fair. I think it's just situations that sort of presented themselves. Obviously, I mean, there's these new batting point metrics that have been implemented.
Yeah, they've introduced
points based on run rates within the first 10, etc. But I think generally for me, how I play it is I try and give myself the first 3 to 4 overs of a 50 over match to see what's happening in terms of what the ball is doing, what the pitch is doing, field placements, etc. And then the next 6 overs I try and sort of maximize and catch up as much as I possibly can. Ultimately, I try to get to 30, 40 by the end of the power play because that's when, you've got two fielders outside and I can maximize. I don't not necessarily have to hit sixes. I just have to hit the ball through or over the inner circle, and it's away. So
Yeah.
that's generally how I play my 50 over cricket. And if the person that I'm batting with at the other end sort of does similarly, then we generally will get those batting points. And so I think that's sort of how it played out in the last two innings when I got that 46 against the Academy, and then obviously the century against Barbados as well. So it's just I guess playing smart cricket and maximizing the power play, and then sort of not fully coming off the gas, but gearing it back down to normal batting throughout the middle phases of the innings.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned there about like getting ahead of the game. It was quite that, I thought on paper initially it might have been a tricky chase against Barbados. But the way, like you said, you got ahead of the game, then it just allowed, once you got out, do ahead of, it completely changed that different tactic, and they don't have to chase the game as such. And, with the field being slightly spread as well, you can rotate the strike and you can get to that total, which I thought was, it was a great win. And how have you found it playing with the CCC?
It's been interesting for many reasons. Obviously, the CCC is not a franchise per se; it's a developmental squad.
Yeah.
I think that from my experience there now, I think it would be, I guess, more beneficial if CWI sort of made it into a franchise per se, because you look at the other seven teams, even the academy has guys on full-time contracts.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to give the CCC an honest chance of competing, you want these guys to be able to be together as a group and practicing for long periods of time as well, getting to know each other, etc., etc. I think it was sort of like a 5-day camp leading into the tournament, and
it's tough.
you're not really going to have guys doing justice to themselves or to the tournament. Obviously, myself being an experienced senior player, it's completely different to these younger guys that are getting an opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
How much of an opportunity are you really giving them when you're not allowing them to prepare and have the best chances at performing? Having said that, it's also interesting as well because you end up playing with guys from different territories, and then you get to have an understanding and an appreciation of how different territories within the Caribbean view you, and how they would prepare to play against you. So it gives you an insight into, okay, so this is what that team would generally be trying to do when they're playing against me. And it's strange in a way. Like I guess you have to go. It's funny. Like you have to leave home to get the appreciation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So not playing for the Leeward Islands now, you feel a lot more respect, a lot more love, if that makes sense, than opposed to what you would do in an environment that is, I guess, what is naturally yours or where you're from. So it's a different viewpoint, but it was very good. I think that having spoken to a lot of the players and coaching staff and stuff, I don't know what their perception was before, but my phone hasn't stopped ringing. Guys have been asking me so many things, and I think my insights and my input was really well received, and I really enjoyed playing with them as well, imparting all the knowledge I've picked up over the years, helping people out, which I've been big on for the past few years anyways. And it's been a really good experience, and so I'll see how the body copes, but we'll see what next steps are in terms of cricket going forward for whether I do play, and if I do play, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said there, though, that you mentioned about taking yourself out of the leagues to get to, the love and things. But one thing I would say as well is, off the back of that century, the love across social media from your teammates, but also the people you've played with, whether that be, from a regional perspective, but also people you played with previously. And I think that it speaks volumes, the way that people responded to something like that, and the appreciation that is shown towards you, and that speaks massive volumes. And the way that, like you were saying there, since you've left and people have obviously reached out to you and stuff, the impact that you'll have on those young lads, and not just the young lads, people who you share the changing room with, and in the training and stuff, well, it'll have a massive impact. I speak so highly of sharing changing rooms with experienced players, and you just become all ears, and you learn so much. And I appreciate what you're saying there. Obviously, I know it's only a 5-day camp prior to going into it, and I totally agree with you in terms of it should become a full-time franchise, because ultimately as well, that would also advantage the whole tournament, whether it be the Super 50 or the 4-day stuff as well, because they're being more competitive, because ultimately they're practicing more. But as a whole, though, like the way that it won't just be a 5-day. Every day that they're with you, they'll be learning and learning and learning. And I think it'll have a massive impact. So the more they do with that will help, the West Indies as a whole as well.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, I generally try and take notes of the various things across tournaments, various observations that I had, and I try and get on calls with Miles Bascom's after every time I play a tournament. I send him messages of what I thought, things that could be improved, etc. So
yeah,
I'm supposed to have a call with him at the end of the tournament, but I've shared some insights with him based on what things that I see. I'll share an example. I think obviously trying to improve fast bowling throughout the region, we definitely need to have better pitches. So I recommended that pitches need to have a minimum preparation period, whether it be 10, 15, 20 days, whatever the case is. But at least that there's been work put into these pitches, because you can't ask people to perform at world-class level on substandard facilities. It's just, it doesn't match up. And something that I would like to see to help our fast bowlers across the region as well is, I've said that there needs to be some sort of a fast bowling program where, for me, how I feel about Otis Gibson. I think he's the best fast bowling coach in the world. So I think that and I think he's currently available as well, obviously with his stint with Yorkshire. I don't think that we should lose out on our best talents, whether it be coaches, whatever it is that West Indies has to offer to other countries. I think that, and I recommended an Otis Gibson-led fast bowling program with Corey Collymore. I've got Winston Benjamin, Kenneth Benjamin, and Dwayne Bravo. I think that will sort of facilitate the various aspects of fast bowling. Kenneth Benjamin is amazing with biomechanics. Obviously, Dwayne Bravo, T20 expert, teaching various skills to the bowlers. And then you've got Winston Benjamin, Corey Collymore, and Otis Gibson covering ODI and test match bowling, just developing bowler skills, whether it be during West Indies camps, or you're talking about going around and working with all the fast bowlers in the franchises. A teams, age group cricket. So you can start developing fast bowlers. You can start developing skilled fast bowlers for various formats, conditions around the world, etc. And I think that will be very beneficial to West Indies cricket immediately, but especially in the long term going forward.
Well, you spoke before, the names that you mentioned there, there's too much knowledge for it to let it go. And you've got to start to utilize it before it is too late. And it's just getting it in place. And I appreciate that we've discussed this before, obviously from a finances perspective and commercial, but they've somehow got to find a way of making that work. And you mentioned there about Dwayne Bravo, the volume of T20 is played. You need to be getting something out of that. It's not, you don't want him doing it in the IPL, coaching in that vicinity. Let's get him coaching in the West Indies and stuff. I think that's, that'd be really good to get that, something like that sorted. In terms of, obviously, speaking of the West Indies, the series against England, what have you made of that so far?
To be completely honest, I didn't see any of the two matches. I think through myself having played games those times of practices and like catching up with studies and etc. and just other things, but I have followed the scorecards. Now, what I have found has become quite interesting now is that day-night cricket in the Caribbean heavily favors the team batting second, so the toss plays a huge role in the team that wins the game. So unless it's going to be a situation where the game is fully in the night or fully in the day, once it's something where there's that twilight period where it
Yeah.
starts when it's late afternoon, evening, going into night, I think that the team batting second probably is going to win most of the matches
Yeah.
because that dew pretty much nullifies spinners and the ball just slides onto the bat perfectly for batting. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think the match would have started now, the third T20.
I think it got slightly rain delayed initially.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But again, yeah, I think not by much. I don't think. I think last time I checked, it was 4:15 in St. Lucia. They were looking to.
Okay.
So.
So yeah, I think it's. I don't know how much you can take away from the results. The individual performances, on the other hand, I think when you look into that, obviously England will be happy as they've blooded quite a few
Yeah.
new young players, and for them to be able to cope with the pressures of international cricket. The Caribbean is not a place that England does well in probably the past 15, 20 years. So
Yeah.
they'll be happy with that. The West Indies, on the other hand, I think the batting unit is not necessarily firing as they normally would. They're getting up to a score in the end, but it's not fluid. It's not the top order sort of dominating,
And then
and you having finishing acts at the end. So I think that they're gonna look for a more comprehensive batting display for the next 3 games. I think the skipper seems to be under pressure. He hasn't sort of made runs for, I'd say, the year, really. When you look at the World Cup, you look at the CPL, you look at this series. So there's been talk about his position in the team. Is he stopping another player from getting into the team or not? But I think just for his own sake and peace of mind, he'll want to sort of get some scores and ease that pressure off his back. And obviously, as a captain as well, once you're performing, that sort of helps with your decision making because you don't feel as though you need to make extra moves to justify your position in the team. So it's going to be interesting. I think I like the look of Evan Lewis back into the team. Very explosive player. Him and Brandon King together. I think it's a good pairing. Yeah. So you've got the Purans, the Hetmeyers, the Rutherfords. And it's just fitting the right pieces in and around those guys now to make a batting unit and try and get them performing consistently. To get West Indies to good totals.
Yeah, definitely. I think I want to quickly mention there you're saying about the conditions. So would you think that would you look to them maybe not have the day nights? Would you rather to make it a bit more of a not a toss orientated game, or how would you work that really?
Well, I think what's happened is we're probably having these matches played at 4 p.m. local time in the Caribbean, which is viewer friendly in the UK. Peak television time, so that at least the UK market gets in, let's say, 2/3 of the match. Ideally, these matches would have started at 7, 8 p.m. Caribbean time. Because
take that out of it completely then.
That takes the UK completely out of it, however. But that brings the Indian television market into play as well. But obviously, because the series is against England, I guess that's why the matches are starting at the time they are, because it's not really a time that's favorable to the Caribbean market. You think about people finishing work at 4 o'clock, having to collect kids, go home, etc. So they'll be coming to the match probably 5:36, and the match is almost over. So I think on a cricketing side of it, it's not necessarily based around the cricket per se, but more so around the economics of the cricket. Which is unfortunate, but again, these things are factors that come into play when you're scheduling events, and how you want to maximize from the events. But I think realistically, these matches should have been played sort of 7 to 10 p.m. And then it would have been a more balanced event where both teams get to perform in pretty much the same conditions.
Yeah. Do you think that these, I know I don't think it was in the ODIs, but in the T20, they are chopping and changing the side a lot, the West Indies. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think they're just testing out the pool, honestly,
Yeah.
because they're searching for a few spots. Right now, there are a few spots that are open. I think the batting is pretty much what it is. I think
Yeah.
Sammy knows who his batters are. I think he's still unsure of who his seamers are, who's fitting what roles,
Yeah.
etc. I think they're heavily dependent on, let's say, a Moti,
Yeah, they're big time.
a Hussein, and an Alzari. But then, obviously, Roston does the off spinning job when it comes to if the conditions are suitable,
Yeah.
matchups with left-handers, etc. But they're still probably not sure on who the other two seam bowlers are to fit the roles that they want, and so you see a lot of Shamar Joseph getting exposed to T20s, which obviously he's an inexperienced bowler, so he hasn't figured out what sort of lengths and skills and stuff he needs
No.
to possess and display at this point in time. And they're going to give other people opportunities as well until sort of it sticks with someone.
No. And that's you're saying there about the Shamar Joseph. He's a perfect example of someone who would benefit from spending that time with someone like Dwayne Bravo.
100%.
Got the skills, but it's about putting that into, implementing it really and putting that in situations from a game perspective when you're going to go with your Yorkers, when you're going back of a length, your slower balls and that sort of stuff. And because he has got the skills, he just needs that, that coaching really. I think he would be someone who massively advantage from someone taking him under his wing a little bit.
100%. And that's where, as I said, like that fast bowling program will come into
Yeah.
play, because it's understanding when it's a situation where you just need to hit hard learning lengths,
Yeah.
understanding situations where
Yeah.
you need to change up. How do you need to change up? What field placements do you need? Understanding pressure situations. You've been hit for boundaries early in the over. How do you pull back the over and close
Yeah.
it out? So it's just little things like that when you have a team that is this young from a bowling standpoint, you can sort of fasten their development and get them to a position where you can have a more holistic team that is ready to compete.
Yeah, definitely. And going off piece a little bit, really, I think you talk about leaderships and mentorship and stuff like that. I think that fast forward into when the Big Bash starts, I think you'll see a massive improvement from the Sydney Thunder with David Warner being involved for the full campaign as captain. You'll see that the impact of someone having someone like him around for the full duration of the tournament and his knowledge and his experience and the way it'll pass down. I think that you'll start to see a real spike in performance from the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean that's the point of having experienced
Yeah,
players, experienced coaches, experienced mentors on
yeah,
board. That this is what I guess provides an environment where people can afford to fail, but that element of failure doesn't last for too long,
yeah,
because you sort of breed an environment of learning,
yeah,
where consistency starts to happen, and player development is number one. And then with that player development, you get players pushing on for greater honors. So that's
yeah,
ultimately what I would like to see from that fast bowling program, because I think that the West Indies are not short of resources when you look at fast bowling options. It's just a
no,
matter of them not being nurtured properly, not
yeah,
being exposed to, I guess, the level of coaching that is necessary for them to go on and be world beaters. And we can't afford to continue to just go about it
yeah,
as if it's status quo. We need to make a few changes and implement certain things that will help our players.
yeah. And well, I just hope that they take something like that on board and try and move forward with it. But staying with the Australian theme, should I say? I'm really looking forward to the Test series next. I think it starts next week, next Friday. I think it is.
Yep.
UK, well, their Thursday. There's been obviously loads and loads of talk about the opening batting position and who will fill it and will they fill it within in terms of someone like Marner's going up there. I know Mitch Marsh was mentioned about going up there, but they named the squad and they brought in Nathan McSweeney and Josh Inglis. What's your sort of take on some of the stuff that's been discussed?
I think both sides, because Rohit Sharma's not going to be there for the first Test match as well. So there's been talk about KL Rahul going up to open the batting. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's whichever team sort of bats better in this series, because I think that the bowling attacks are pretty much neutralizing each other. They cancel each other out for the most part. I think Australia probably pips the advantage with the bowling attacks slightly. Because India's third seamer, I'm not sure who that may be. If they had a fit and firing Mohammad Shami, then 100% I'd say it's 100% cancelled out each bowling unit. So I think it's which batting unit gets the best out of their players will come out on top. Having said that, it will be interesting to see the performances of a Virat Kohli, a Rohit Sharma, a Steve Smith, a Usman Khawaja, obviously all being more advanced in age than the rest of the guys, and understanding how much longer they have in Test cricket, how much longer do they want to play Test cricket, based on the results of the series as well. You know how that may impact a board's decision to sort of say, all right, we're looking to go in a different direction now, and blood new players. You look at India's team, T20 team over in South Africa, for example, and Sanju Samson seems to have finally gotten an opportunity, and he's going absolutely crazy. You look at Tilak Varma, who's scored a century, who I think is a really good, young, exciting player. So, it just, there's a lot on offer for both sides, win and lose, because there will be new players coming into the fore from both sides as well. So I just think that it's probably going to be the last of this keenly contested Australia-India series that has sort of happened over the past 10 years now. And it's good for Test cricket, because ultimately it's my favorite form of the game to look at when it's being played at such high octane levels. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it's like the tactical battles that you get within that 5-day period. And one of them I'm looking forward to is, I read an article, how true this is. They were on about how the Indians are going to look to target Nathan Lyon in the way that, with them losing Cam Green and that side of things, of having that all-rounder, where if they can attack Nathan Lyon, it means that the quicks, one of the three, are going to have to come back on, and obviously it plays a part over that 5-day period from the lack of rest that they're getting and stuff. And when you're reading it, it's a battle, and it's a real tactical approach. And that's what really gets me excited about the series and this talk. I just see Kohli having a monster series, I do. There's something about great players who, when there's talk of, I don't know, I just see it coming. I do think Steve Smith will have a great series as well at 4. I think that the way that I think he wants to go back down, well, whatever's gone on there anyway, I think that'll be that. And I do think Kohli and both, even when Rohit Sharma comes back in, I think they'll both have a big impact on this series, because I know we spoke before about Sharma, we spoke about Kohli. I think they're just too good to. They're just big plays in big times, and it's a big series.
No, I mean, if they do, I won't be surprised. I mean,
that's true. It's not like I'm breaking, breaking news that Jordan thinks.
No, I mean, we sort of cast our mind back to the 50 over World Cup just passed, and there's lots of speculation in the Indian press about Kohli and Rohit, and whether they should be selected, etc. One made 700 runs, one made 500 runs, and they took India to the World Cup final. That was the only match that they lost in the tournament. So, these are two guys that, as you said, you put them on the biggest stage, and you definitely get the best out of them. So, I can see them having some impact on the series. I'm just not sure as to how consistent that impact will be as
Yeah,
opposed to what we've known from them.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean with that. I maybe just, I don't know, going with the side of what we've discussed loads, which is the quality, and that will come through. How much it'll come through, and ultimately, they're going up against a tough bowler lineup. So the way it's going to be challenged and things, but I think the way that you break it down and you think of ways it'll work and ways it'll be tough, I think ultimately it just highlights why it's Test cricket, because there's going to be battles across all of the Test matches and different battles in the middle of the order, at the top of the order versus wherever. And I think that's what makes it so intriguing. And I think that if Nathan McSweeney does come in to open the batting, he's going into, arguably one of the toughest test. Well, it is going to be the toughest test of his career and things. But one thing I would like to say is I think the way Australia have gone about that is really, really good. He's moved states from Queensland to South Australia. He's got given a bit more of a leadership role at South Australia. Then he's playing a lot more of the Australia A stuff, and then more recently opening the batting because obviously the way that they were potentially drafting him in, and I think that shows like a long-term plan. And I think sometimes I've been critical of England over some of the selection policies or the way they've gone about it. And you look at the way that Australia picked Nathan McSweeney, they've done it they've earmarked it in 2 years ago, should I say, and a nice little plan. And you talk about, the leadership and giving him responsibility as a leader. It all helps you once you get onto that international stage. And I think that it's highlight for me that the planning differences from when they lost the likes of Hayden, Langer, etc., that this time around they are learning from mistakes that they made last time.
Yeah, I think it's important timing as well because I think Nathan McSweeney's won the job now, and I
Yeah,
think that they should stick with him regardless of the results because you think of the bigger picture with the Ashes coming up
yeah,
in 12 months, you want to have someone there that's gone through a tough series like this,
yeah,
goes away on overseas tours throughout the rest of the year,
yeah,
and then comes back sort of at least in a better position with the understanding of Test cricket going into an Ashes series as
yeah,
opposed to being in a position where you need to blood a new opener then as well. So I think, as you said, like the planning that's gone into this sort of 2 years out and understanding the build-up of we will need a
yeah,
new opener to replace David Warner at some point, because I think the same conversation is going to be happening around Usman Khawaja as
yeah,
well, depending on
yeah.
how long he wants to go. And they seem to be quite keen on Sam
Constant.
Constance
Yeah,
from New South Wales, and from everything that I've seen, he seems to be a very good learner, very quick learner,
yeah,
an extremely talented player from all reports from everyone in the know in Australia, based on everything that I've read up. So
yeah,
I think the succession planning is well underway in Australia, and they understand where their team is at now and where it's going to be at in 12 to 18 months as well. So
yeah.
that's really good to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think going back to the very start of this conversation when we spoke about like the CCC, once McSweeney gets into that setup, it's definitely going to be an environmental change in terms of how they go about preparation, how they go about everything that towards that test match, and ultimately what he will learn from the camps leading into the series, and also going into the first test, and hopefully that he plays the rest of the series as well. Is that development and that learning will be massive, more so than maybe all of the Sheffield Shield games he's played and stuff, because it's all about watching these top pros go about the business and how they break down an innings. Or there's loads, obviously, we could go, loads and loads and loads. But I totally agree with you. I hope they do stick with him, and because obviously, like there is going to be something down the line where Khawaja, retires, and if they're going to go with Constance and Sound, whatever. But again, it's all leading, to what will be hopefully a superb series to look forward to.
Yeah, I think it'd be very interesting. The Australians, I mean, have the added vigor of losing the last two of these series in Australia.
Yeah,
India has held the Border Gavaskar Test trophy for quite some time now, because obviously India haven't been defeated in India for the greater part of a decade. And
now,
New Zealand is surprisingly to all the team that went there and not only broke that spell but won 3-0. I mean, Australia's got the drive of wanting to capture the trophy, whereas India has got the drive of wanting to rebound from their first series defeat at home. For 10 years. So
well, I'm sure over the next few weeks we'll definitely be breaking it down. There'll be plenty to talk about as well as we look back on obviously the T20 stuff, as well as I think England go to New Zealand as well. So there's lots to talk about. But thank you so much, Kai, for catching up, and I hope you feel a bit better with your injury and stuff, and gutted to not see you out there doing your thing, because last week it was quality.
No, cheers, John.
And thank you very much to everybody who's been listening and watching, episode 50. Plenty more to come, but thank you very much for your help. I hope you all enjoy it, and speak to you all soon.
Thank you for joining us on the PowettPlay Podcast, hosted by Kieran, Powell and Jordan Shannon. We hope you enjoyed this immersive dive into the world of cricket and business, exploring the unique experiences and perspectives of players past and present, alongside those invaluable insights into intriguing business themes that transcend beyond the boundaries of sporting heroics. Be sure to set your reminders on your Alexa or Google Home device, or we won't tell anyone if you still use those paper calendar things from a bygone era. Join us next time for more inspiring dialogue with scintillating minds on the PowettPlay Podcast.